Today, we will delve into the intriguing world of ancient Roman relationships.
Marriage in ancient Rome, a business deal in the fascinating world of ancient Rome. Marriage looked very different from what we think of today. Back then, getting married wasn't really about love or spending your life with someone special. It was more like making a business deal or forming a powerful alliance between families. Surprisingly, it was totally normal, even expected, for Roman husbands to be unfaithful. Affairs weren't hidden or shameful like they might be today. The dynamics of relationships, in fact, many men had casual flings with women in the world. People didn't label themselves the way we often do today as gay, straight, or bisexual. Instead, they cared more about who was in control during a relationship than who was involved. In a typical man-woman relationship, the man was seen as the dominant one, the giver, while the woman was the receiver. This wasn't just about the relationship itself, it was also about showing who had the power. Same-sex relationships, Pedresty. When two men were involved, things got more complicated. One of them had to take on the receiver role, which Romans thought of as more feminine and submissive. That position often carried a social stigma for adult men, but not always, especially if the younger partner was still a teenager. One well-known type of same-sex relationship was called Pedresty. In this setup, an older man called the Erastes formed a bond with a teenage boy known as the Ereminos, but it wasn't just about romance or anything of intimacy. These relationships often included mentorship, guidance, and help with getting ahead in society. Age differences and social status. Back then, big age differences in these relationships weren't shocking like they would be today, especially among the wealthy and powerful. For the Roman elite, it was seen as a normal part of a young man's journey into adulthood, offering him important connections and a way into the world of politics and influence. Even among Rome's most powerful men, the same was true of the other men, emperors, and their relationships. The Roman Empire was a very ancient birth control in a strange and practical sense in same-sex relationships. The person with more power, like an emperor, was usually expected to take the dominant masculine role. This showed off his strength and authority. But Roman society didn't always follow its own rules. Sometimes even the most powerful men didn't stick to these expectations. Julius Caesar, a complex figure, believe it or not. Julius Caesar, one of the most famous leaders in Roman history, was married to a woman mainly for political reasons and seemed to have no real romantic interest in her. In fact, many historians believe they never even shared a physical relationship. The story comes from the fact that both Hadrian and his wife had many lovers of their own. Hadrian gave most of his attention to men. One young man in particular stood out, a beautiful and intelligent teenager named Antinous. Hadrian adored him. Tragic end of Antinous. He made sure Antinous received an excellent education, and the two traveled together across the empire. But their close bond ended in tragedy while they were in Egypt. Antinous mysteriously drowned in the Nile River. The emperor of Antiochus and his behavior shocked even the Romans. Most emperors chose their lovers from palace slaves and still treated them like servants. Nero, breaking norms. Nero, however, did something very different. He held full wedding ceremonies in one case. He married a former slave named Pythagoras, but Nero played the role of the bride, wearing a veil and all. While Pythagoras was the groom, this confused the public, because Nero as emperor was expected to take the dominant masculine role. Later, Nero married another young male slave named Sporus. Nero's disturbing actions, this time to please the Roman people. He took on the masculine role himself, showing how even emperors had to balance their personal desires with public expectations. However, some of Emperor Nero's actions would be deeply disturbing by today's standards. In one shocking case, to make sure the public saw him as the dominant masculine figure in his relationship with the boy Sporus, Nero had the boy castrated, a cruel act done purely for image and control. Tiberius, a dark reputation. There are other examples of Nero being harsh or abusive toward his lovers. But it's hard to know exactly what's true. The most shocking claim about Emperor Nero is the ancient assertion that he committed incest with his mother, Agrippina the Younger. This allegation appears primarily in the works of the historian Suetonius, and more cautiously in Tacitus. Both suggest Agrippina initiated the relationship to maintain control over Nero after he became emperor. The abuse of power in Rome, while the incest allegation is a notorious part of Nero's dark legend, it is almost universally regarded by credible historians as a vicious fabrication. It represents a potent example of how political enemies in ancient Rome used sexual slander to destroy reputations posthumously. But while Nero's behavior was extreme, another emperor, Tiberius, is remembered even more darkly, especially for how he treated the young people around him. Tiberius and His Legacy. Tiberius is often described as one of the worst offenders when it came to abusing his power over his lovers. He had a strong interest in much younger boys, and the way he treated them has led many historians to call him one of the most sexually corrupt emperors in Roman history. Much of this happened far from the public eye. Tiberius spent many of his later years in luxury villas on islands in the Mediterranean, especially the island of Capri. Conclusion: the dark side of power. He had boys brought there officially as servants, but many reports suggest they were also used to satisfy his sexual desires. Some of the stories about Tiberius are likely exaggerated. Roman historians often added shocking details to make their subjects look worse, but even if only part of it is true, it paints a disturbing picture of how absolute power could be abused in the Roman Empire.